Active FM. Radio has never been better.
What is up?
How you doing?
This is the movie show.
On your favorite OSPS.
I'm Sash.
My name's Ryan.
And
we are 12 strong.
We are 12. Just the two of us are 12. No. So if you listened to last week's show, you would be like, oh, they actually went ahead and watched the movie that Sash explained.
Behind us, so 6.
There we go.
12.
So this is a film that has Chris Hemsworth in it. It is a 2018 action drama film that's the correct term. That runs for 2 hours and 10 minutes. And yeah, it's a war film. It's a full out war film.
They were out in Afghanistan.
Yep.
In Afghan. Fight the war in Afghan.
But it is based on a true story, which is pretty cool. An incredible story that only... So I know at the time... So this film is now like... Sure, it's like 5 years old already. But at the time when it came out, the story that is told within this film had just been released to the public. So even though this film actually happened just after the 9/11 attack, the story was only like released to the public eye recently before the film was made. But I think the fact that it was a true life story made it so much more...
It's very cool.
Impactful.
And it's not like the usual, okay, they got in vehicles, they went, okay, they were surrounded, but they beat they just beat them all.
Yeah.
And victory, and they lost 3 shots, so, they'll always remember their 3 brothers that got killed in the war. None of that. None of which I said. Except that they were on horseback, so it made it extremely difficult. And not one died.
The crazy part, if you said to me they are going against tanks on horses, I'd be like, they're all going to die. And the horses are going to die. Why would you do that? But that is literally what happened here. So in a nutshell...
They had bombs in the sky.
But still, Ryan... Like, you are not protected when you are on a horse. There's no protection. So these 12 guys, they were sent into Afghanistan, to basically take down the Taliban. And the mission should have taken actually like 3 years, took them 3 weeks. They did all of that in 3 weeks. Only the 12 of them on horseback. And the reason they were on horseback was they went basically undercover. And they met up with this warlord who was he was a local warlord. And so they were working closely with him, and his whole team rode on horseback. And so they kind of had to like jump on the same bandwagon, excuse the pun.
And they had to split teams.
Yes, they had to split teams. So they were 6-6. I did watch an interview. So if you watch the film, the warlord, the way they depict him in the film, he's very rude. And so when they first meet him, he pretends he can't speak English. Then obviously later on he speaks in English, and Chris Hemsworth's like, oh, you can speak English. Then I know at one point Chris Hemsworth approaches him and says, please show me on the map where we're going. And he just points. He doesn't even acknowledge the fact that Chris Hemsworth just asked him to show him on the map. But apparently that was not true. I was watching a podcast where the actual real life soldiers were on this podcast, and they were saying that he was very welcoming. Like the first time they saw him, he walked up to them and he was like, oh, okay guys, welcome. He obviously wanted their help, and it was an immediate okay, let me show you my plans. This is the strategies I've got. Yeah. So I don't know why they depicted him like they depicted him. Maybe just to add some spice to the story.
Make him interesting. Yeah. Dust him.
Yeah.
That guy.
So he was very interesting. The cast was very good.
If you've ever seen William Fichtner without hair, you see him in this movie without hair.
I actually just clicked who he was, and I didn't click it was him in the movie.
I was just like, whoa, what happened to you?
Where did your hair go?
Yeah, pretty crazy.
So you have Chris Hemsworth, who's the protagonist. Then you have Michael Pena. Now, if you know this guy, if you don't know this guy, you do know this guy.
I didn't feel like he was a soldier though.
Really?
Yeah, he's still the way he was even walking around is I was just like, yeah, dude, you.
So he's the guy from Ant-Man that always tells the
stories.
So I know this guy that knows this other guy, and then this other guy said to that other guy that dude, why are you looking at me like that? And then he was like, dude, I'm not looking like that. That's that guy. He's a soldier. And then I really enjoyed Michael Shannon.
Yeah.
Like thoroughly enjoyed him. He was very,
cool.
very good. I thought, spoiler alert, we've already said no one dies. I thought he was going to die. Like the whole time we watched this film, I was just like, this guy's dead. Because even the way like he leaves his family on like really bad terms, because obviously they were, all of these men when they left, their families didn't know if that was the last time they were going to see him. I suppose it's the same for whenever a man in your family goes off to fight in the army. Like
Exactly.
there's a possibility that he doesn't come home because he's going to fight and people want him dead because that's what the enemy is going to do. They're going to try to kill him. So I really thought he was going to die. And I was like, shame. His wife and his son just like didn't even say goodbye nicely and now he's going to die.
Well,
And
you told me that no one dies.
did I tell you no
So
one dies?
I was...
Sorry, Ryan. What? Did I really tell you no one dies?
I was just like, yeah, none of them died.
When did I tell you no
and
one
I
dies?
watched it and I was like... And then...
I think that's the crazy part because like if you look at a war situation like this with the odds against them, like if no one died, you would say, oh yeah, that's the Hollywood way, you know, like people, of course someone would have died, but the fact that no one died and it's a true life story is crazy. Like
I think that's what makes it more amazing.
I think that's also maybe why I thought someone was going to die, because I saw that this is based on true life events in the beginning and I was just like, people die in real life, man. And so, yeah, but I was shocked. No one died. It was pretty cool. And then we did mention this in the previous show, but Chris Hemsworth's wife is in the film. Her name is Elsa Pataki.
That chick.
I don't know how to pronounce her surname. No, it's not Hemsworth. And she plays Chris Hemsworth's wife in the movie.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting.
Wow, they look very natural.
And then obviously there's a lot of people involved in this film. But it was very interesting. Yeah. It was something fresh to watch. And I think the crazy part about this film was that the odds were so against these 12 men and yet they made it.
Exactly. If you look at the photo of the original team, they don't look like tough guys.
They never do, Ryan. Think about it.
They look like my uncles, man.
Yeah, but they never think about every single war movie you've watched that was based on a true story.
No, they all got big muscles and they're all like all buff and
at
stuff.
the end, then they show you the actual people and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I suppose.
Like that always
But
happens.
these guys were on horseback.
The only people that look slightly different is the people that fought in World War I and World War II.
Really?
Yeah, there's something like you can just see they're like they were a World War I soldier. No?
I suppose it's the first time they would have been through a war, no? Anyway.
Maybe it's also because they were so young.
The ODA 595. Go check them out, guys. Go Google it.
Are they still functioning today?
I doubt that. I'm sure that they... Wait. It was in October the 19th, 2001.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. We don't know. We don't know if they're still functioning today. They might still be functioning. I don't think they're still functioning today, though. Right?
I'm sure after that you... Well, but remember, they were already like pretty much retired, weren't they? Or not retired, they were just
Yeah,
reassigned.
that's true, actually. My question, though, is... So, obviously, like, they attacked Al-Qaeda. And I know at the end of the film, they still say, like, Al-Qaeda still... basically, this victory for America was Al-Qaeda's worst defeat. But, like, it's not like the war ended then. The war went on for like years after that. In fact, isn't it still going on? Or we just like, oh yeah, that's been happening. Like,
well, what's the war? It's those terrorist groups trying to dominate, isn't it? They're like taking over towns. Because I mean, that's what we saw. They started wiping them, like cleaning out different towns and stuff like that.
But then remember, we still watched Covenant.
Yeah.
And then Covenant was also set in Afghanistan. And then it spoke about the fact that the Taliban,
oh, yes.
they just took over again.
Yeah.
And then they started killing. So the whole thing on the Covenant was there were these Afghanistan people who became translators for the Americans. And when the Taliban regained power, they like slaughtered them and their families. So like, was it just a loss? What?
Yeah, so in other words, what we saw, those words that we saw at the end were basically just a nice way of saying...
This was, so in other words, America won a battle, but they didn't win the war.
Yeah, they did good, yeah. They did very well, exceptionally well. Very good. Horses and all. Yeah.
I suppose if America hadn't had this victory, what we see and know today would be a lot different.
I mean, it was the Taliban. They're a lot. Yeah, they are innumerous.
And they are a terrorist group, which means
they're crazy. There's a lot of them. I think that's why it's difficult to just send in like the whole American army in there, wipe them out, because like it's a lot of people, a lot of Americans that they have to send in there. Yeah, just send them all in at once.
Are the Americans still there? Suppose this is not the question we should be asking.
It's a good question. Does anybody know? Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Let's ask Google. Google knows.
Google will tell us whether the Americans are still... Yeah. I think... if you like war movies, this is a very good war movie. If you're not that into war movies, I think the what will grab you with this film is the fact that each one of these men, so with the way they set it up in the beginning, you connect with each one of each member with his family, and you realize that as each member goes, there's a family back at home waiting, hoping, praying that they're going to return. And then I think the other part is that the odds were so against them. So I think that's what makes this one like special. I don't know if it would go in my list of like best war movies of all time.
Okay, so this makes a lot of sense. Although the US at one time had more than 100,000 troops in Afghan, and more than 160,000 troops in Iraq, the military pulled out of Afghanistan completely in 2021. And in Iraq, operations are limited now to just a handful of troops performing advice and assist missions only.
Was that because of Trump? I think Trump got them out.
Maybe.
So they are no longer there, people. That is the answer.
But there's a handful of them just to assist. But 100,000 soldiers is a lot.
No, it's a lot.
That's a lot of them to send them there.
And it's a lot of resources.
Yeah. And not only that, there's... most of those soldiers come back with what is that, PTSD?
Oh yeah, PTSD.
Post.
And like, were they actually? Because like, if you think about it, right? So 9/11 happened in 2001.
Yeah.
We are now sitting 2023. That's 20 years later. And like, if Afghanistan still looks like it looked back then, with the being like a war like ridden city,
terrorists fighting.
That doesn't make sense. Like 20 years, what wars lasted 20 years? Like World War I was 4. World War II, I think, was also 4 years. But like the countries had a chance then afterwards to, like reestablish themselves and like recuperate after. I'm not even talking army now. I'm talking like, because if you think about like there's people who have literally grown up there and all they know is war. And it's normal. And that shouldn't be normal.
Yeah.
So like the fact that the Americans only pulled out last year, like are they helping? I don't know. I'm speaking completely out of like
did it help?
Like lack of knowledge. But like for me, a war should not be going on 20 years later.
Yeah, it should be won and then finished.
Yeah.
And as we saw, like in the movie, you see how they have specific laws that really impact them. So it's right in the beginning where you see them terrorizing like almost like a family or a village.
Yes. Oh, that was terrible.
And then the guys, basically, there's a law that says a
woman, a girl
under 12
over
shouldn't be educated.
No, over 12. Yes. Yeah,
over 12 shouldn't be educated.
Was it 12? Was that the age?
I think so. And then they execute the teacher.
The mom.
Yeah, was it the mom?
She was the mom.
So, but because she was teaching them,
she was
right?
educating them. Yeah, that's why the guy was crying, because it was the dad, the mom, and then the 2 daughters, or 3 daughters. It was 3 daughters.
And all he was asking the girls was like some math questions, how to spell giraffe.
But the fact that they could answer, yeah, it's terrible. So it really is terrible.
So you can imagine and I think that's what they do. And I think Al Qaeda, they're the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's the difference between Al Qaeda and the Taliban? Is it 2 different terrorist groups?
It might be. It might be 2 different.
And am I right that they are going and enforcing like Islamic sort of law type of
I
thing?
think so, but then also they fight within
It's
each other.
something else. There's the Islamic law, and then there's like another deeper type of, like, even where you you go deeper, like more, like it's more hectic,
Like ISIS.
like exactly, like women have to wear the covering, blah blah blah, all of that stuff.
Okay, here it says Al-Qaeda fighters are mostly urban and have little religious training and wage international jihad. The objectives are global. The Taliban, on the other hand, are mostly from the countryside,
Afghanistan.
and their leaders have more religious training,
There you
and they
go.
have mostly
Okay.
local objectives. So yes, the Taliban attacked. So like, I don't know if you remember in the Covenant, the Taliban, the local people hated the Taliban for what the Taliban was doing to the local people, whereas Al Qaeda is more of like this. I suppose the terrorists come out of Al Qaeda, so the world has to worry about Al Qaeda, whereas the locals have to worry about the Taliban. Yeah.
I think to correct myself, so they are what's called Islamic extremists. So they are forcing Islamic law upon the villages and that. Now, obviously, that just with those guys alone, it makes it horrible, because I'm sure for a lot of Muslims, they feel like people look down on them type of thing. And then on the other way around, a lot of people feel threatened by Muslims. So they see someone in like an Arabic, dress code, and they're like, oh my word, a bomber, And then that person is like, do they think I'm a bomber?
They think I'm a bomber, don't they?
Type of thing. So.
And then this is interesting. So is ISIS and the Taliban the same thing? So ISIS and the Taliban are both Sunni. So I know they're Sunni, and I can't remember what the other one is.
That's like
they're Islamic, but they have different ideology.
Yeah.
And they actually fight against each other. So both of these are Sunni Islamist extremist groups, but they're enemies because they have different ideologies, and therefore they fight each other for control over parts of the country and recruits.
Pretty crazy.
So Shame, you literally have a whole bunch of like extremist groups fighting. I suppose that's why the war hasn't let up, because there's a whole bunch of warlords, which you even saw in this. At one point, the warlord that the Americans team up with, he finds out that they're basically going to open the way for another Islamic warlord to like win the victory. And he was like, he wasn't prepared. He would rather have the Taliban beat them than let that other warlord take the victory. But then in the end, he actually does concede, helps them, and even goes and like respectfully acknowledges the other warlord. But like, it shows how like it's hectic, man. Like. Yeah.
Even in the film, you see, because he answers, he's like, it's fine. We'll win this village tomorrow. Nothing's for certain. Literally his words. Nothing's for certain. Today you are friend. Tomorrow, you're our enemy. Today, if you stay here, you invading us. If you go away, we call you cowards. It's almost like there's a no win.
Yeah, there's no win.
That line, that whole paragraph, it really gives the message of, there's no winning here. There's no winning. It's a war, and it's going to go on, and it's shame.
It's like when no one actually really knows what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they still said, like, we'll be friends today, but then tomorrow you're my worst enemy.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's quite hectic, It is very hectic. But I do think that the film depicted it very well. I know that they obviously the actual guys were saying they Hollywood. They brought their Hollywood flair to it. So like there are some changes. I know that there were certain things that were left out, but I think overall they did a very good job at. In fact, the director, we didn't even speak about the director. He's a Danish film director. Yep. His name is Nikolai Fuglsik. Fuglsik. Oh my goodness. Fuglsik. No, just say it fast. But what was interesting was he hasn't done a lot of films. So he did 12 Strong in 2018. And then in 2020, there was another one called Fried Barry, which I have not watched or even heard of. And the rest are like, I think, short films. Yeah, like he did a Galaxy Note 10 official film.
Sure. How did you find Chris Hemsworth's American accent?
I thought it was pretty good.
I could hear him slip now and then on some
One or two words.
Yeah.
The reason I thought it was pretty good though, because I was watching an interview with him, and in the interview I thought, sure, he actually has a very Australian accent.
he does.
And I was like, okay, obviously I'm used to his in Extraction 2 he did have an Australian accent.
Yeah.
Now that I think about
He
it,
kept the
Yeah.
Australian accent.
but he didn't tone it down in Extraction 2. No. Because like the interview I watched, he had like a heavy. I was
necessarily
surprised.
remember.
I was like,
So maybe it did lighten it up. But in this one, like just hearing American, I was just like, I don't know. It wasn't. I don't know. It just. It
you know
wouldn't
what? I
gel
think
together
while I
in my
was watching
brain.
it, I wasn't thinking Oh wait. Now that you mention it, wait. I just clicked in the film. I was trying to piece it together. I thought he was like an Australian that just happened to be in America at the
Is
time,
it?
and so now that you
I think his
mention
wife
that,
kept her Australian accent
yeah.
because I was listening out for it, and then
You know
when I heard
how
her talk.
Chris Hemsworth, for me, just hear me, is not an actor that I put accents to.
No.
Like for me, if you have Chris Hemsworth in your movie, the chances are you have Chris Hemsworth in your movie. Like he's there for his looks, his muscles, his stunts.
And in this movie,
Yeah.
there wasn't much Chris Hemsworth, if you know what I'm saying. Like there was none of that like charm and
Oh yeah, that's true.
and that
That is true.
that
Humor.
Thor thing going on. Even in Extraction 2, there was a bit of that, like him winking at the girl, that sort of stuff. But in this one, he was just straightforward,
It was just like a
killer eyes. Now those are killer eyes. What have you killed?
it was like
Yeah.
yo.
But I liked his humility, the
Yeah.
actor, the humility. Like the warlord's like shouting at him, and he's not shouting back. He's like acknowledging. He's like, okay, yeah, true.
You have to respect
Heart.
the actual men that
Heart.
went through this. Like you really.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was glad no one died. Sorry
Me
if
too.
we spoiled alert. It's funny, this came out so long ago and yet we only watched it now. It's like one of those films that like just slipped the radar in 2018.
Straight after Extraction 2.
Yeah.
So we had to continue. So are we continuing on the Chris Hemsworth
No,
horse? or-
because we are doing Guardians of the
Oh,
Galaxy
yeah.
Volume 3.
I'm
It is
looking forward to
time
that.
for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. You will find out if we loved it or hated it
Yes.
next week. But until then,
Well, I already know.
no, we don't know. Because Marvel's been...
If you guys haven't been watching our films, then you don't know how Sashi feels about Guardians of the Galaxy.
And then we've got Barbie coming up, which Ryan's definitely looking forward to.
I'm sure that's my week off.
Oh, is that your week off?
So I'm sure I won't be.
I'll find someone. I'll find someone to come on the show that we
Yeah.
can do Barbie with me.
Yeah.
Or I'll just force Ryan to watch it and be like, Ryan, you can slate it. You can slate it like I slated Black Adam. I watched it.
It's
I
not
hated
even-
it. I hated every second of it.
It's
But
not
I
even
watched
worth
it.
slating.
You could just come and sit here and be like,
I just don't
just
want
put
to
a board
watch
up that said, we'll just stick something on your forehead that says, I hated it.
it. Can I
Or
paint?
told you so.
Can I paint my eyes on my eyelids? And just
Yes,
sit
you
like
can.
this?
And I'll just like pretend like,
And then we'll tie a string
yes.
here.
And then someone can just like
And
pull
then
you. We'll have practical
The
effects
camera
going.
operator can just.
Yeah. No, but you have to at least watch the film, Ryan. Because, there's that slight chance where Ryan's like, guys, I expected this movie to suck. And for some odd reason, it didn't. I'm not expecting that to happen, but it could happen. You see, Ryan's even agreeing.
String charm.
I thought you were going to pretend you're drooling. Yeah. But anyway, we will be back next week with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So go do a Guardians of the Galaxy
Yeah.
Volume 1, 2, and 3 marathon. Plus Endgame and
That's a
Infinity
great
War.
idea.
Because they were
That's a great idea.
I did that before I went to watch Guardians
Damn,
3.
I'm going to do that.
There we go.
Tonight, 1.
Tomorrow 2. The following night 3. Oh, you have to fit... Oh, no. Sorry. You have to watch 1 and 2. And then you have to watch Infinity War and Endgame. And then you'll be ready for
Sounds
3.
good.
There we go.
Can do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
We're doing that.
But until then, peace.
Cheers.